It doesn't matter. Don't worry about it.
Welcome to our October music service here at Birchcliff Bluffs United Church. I'm happy this morning to welcome our old friend and Irish fiddler Daniel Givrin, who will be playing. Most of you here have heard him play here before, so it's always nice to have him get up early on Sunday and come across town to join us. Thank you. Today we're going to be looking at the Celtic traditions behind our modern day celebrations of Halloween. So it should be some fun, interesting music and some fun, interesting stories. So hopefully you'll all enjoy it, and you even get a chance later to sing along with one of the songs. So, and not just a hymn. That's a good round of applause for that. Please join together in our call to worship. When we pass through the rough waters, you are there with us. When we suffer and feel hopeless, you are there with us. When we are joyful and celebratory, you are there with us. Whether we feel triumphant or defeated, you are there with us always. Come, let us join our hearts and voices, together with all the saints throughout time, as we come together this day. We're going to open with a hymn called Let There Be Lights. The words will be up on the screen for those of you who don't have a hymnal, but if you happen to have it, it is the Voices United 679.
now take a moment to acknowledge the sacred land beside the water on which we gather. It has been the site of human activity for many thousands of years. This land is the territory of the Huron-Wendat and the Petun First Nations, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Scugog. The lands where Birchcliff Bluffs United Church sit are part of the Williams Treaty. Today, the meeting place around Toronto is still home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. We are grateful for the opportunity to live and work on this territory. And we seek to be mindful of the broken covenants and the need to strive to make things right with all our relations.
We light the Christ candle today in memory of all those who have gone before us. Family, friends, church members, beloved souls who have left us but remain in our hearts and memories. We also light this candle to remember that we are an affirming congregation, publicly, intentionally, and explicitly welcoming people of all gender identities. For those watching at home, there's many people in costumes today because of Halloween. We didn't just bring a convict in to read.
I don't know if it's going to be up there, but the opening prayer, the countless saints of history who have blazed a trail of courage through time, the tender touch of loved ones, the example of heroes, the healing words of comforters, the remarkable acts of fearless ones, the gentle strength of grandmothers, the loyalty of friends and kindness of strangers, the joy of children, the sacrifice of parents, the young and old, the dead and living, articulate and silent, strange and familiar, brilliant and ordinary. In every time and place, they have shown us the way. We are surrounded by so great a cloud of witness. So let us raise our voices together. Amen.
We are going to continue with a very old hymn, Be Thou My Vision. And the reason we chose it this morning is because of the Celtic theme of all our music, and I felt it's possibly within the church world the best known Irish hymn out there. So Be Thou My Vision. Okay, good. I was hoping those were working. It's Voices United 642 for anyone on the hymnal, or the words will be up on the screen as well. Be Thou My Vision. Thank you. We'll now continue with the life and work of the church.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome, welcome, welcome. It's so good to see so many familiar faces and kind of familiar faces. Sort of familiar. I would like to offer my apologies for the PowerPoint this morning. Somebody asked me to add something in at the last minute, and while I was doing that, I managed to muck up the rest of it. My only apology is that I overslept this morning and I haven't had my coffee. And those of you who know me well know that I desperately need my coffee. So we are trying to fix it. In the meantime, thank you for coming back, Daniel.
My pleasure.
It's a true pleasure to have you back and to be again among our friends. Next week is November 6th. It will be our Remembrance service because it's the Sunday before Remembrance Day. And it's also the first Sunday of the month, so there will be communion. And for those who are not familiar with it, it's very, very safe communion. Little circles of whatever it is. It's very good.
That's the religious term.
But they're safe. Well, what do you call them?
The wafer, the host.
The wafer. Yes, I know it's the wafer. It still tastes like a little circle of cardboard. Anyway, welcome and enjoy the service.
We'll now continue with our scripture reading for the morning. Oh, no, we're just. Oh.
Our scripture reading this morning is taken from Luke chapter 6, verses 20 to 31. The first section is entitled Blessings and Woes. Then he looked up at his disciples and said, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who are hungry now, for you will be filled. Blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh. Blessed are you when people hate you, and when they exclude you, revile you, and defame you on account of the Son of Man. Rejoice on that day and leap for joy, for surely your reward is great in heaven, for that is how their ancestors treated the prophets. But woe to you who are rich, for you have received your consolation. Woe to you who are full now, for you will be hungry. Woe to you who are laughing now, for you will mourn and weep. Woe to you when all speak well of you, for that is how their ancestors treated false prophets." And the final verse is entitled Love for Enemies. "But I say to you who are listening, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you, praise for those who mistreat you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to anyone who asks of you, and if anyone takes away what is yours, do not ask for it back again. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you."
This week's reading was chosen because historically, on this particular weekend, as we go into All Hallows Eve and All Hallows Day, the traditional reading in the church has always been what we call the Beatitudes, what you just heard. But the version from Luke, as opposed to when you normally hear them, it's usually from the book of Matthew. So, but historically, within the Catholic Church, they always use that particular version of the Beatitudes this weekend. So I thought that would be a nice touch to include it. We're going to continue with a bit of Celtic music. I'm going to have Daniel come back up, and I'm going to ask Laura Lee to join us as well. And we're going to do a beautiful old Celtic tune called I Wish I Was in Carrick Fergus.
spend my days in endless roaming. Soft is the grass I walk, and my head is free. Oh, to be home now, in carried furnace, on the long road down to the sea.
Now, the next number is going to sound perhaps a little different in church. But the thing about this time of year is the tradition is we have All Hallows Eve, which is tomorrow. And Hallow is the medieval term for Hallig, which is a medieval word for saint or holy. So the point of All Hallows Eve, what we now call Halloween, is that it leads to All Hallows Day or All Saints Day. And then the next day is All Souls Day, where we think of all the people who've gone before us. So it's a little 3-day event. And now the thing about the Celtic tradition, which we'll talk about later, is, as many of you know, the Irish have a very healthy, I think, relationship with the concept of death. And so frequently, if you've ever been to an Irish wake, you know, it seems more celebratory than remorseful, which is lovely. And so Daniel here is going to perform a special number for us. You know, I've done it a bunch of times over the years, which is basically talks about attending a particular wake.
Tim Finnegan lived in Walking Street, a gentle Irishman, mighty odd. Now you see, to grow both rich and sweet, and to rise in the world he carried a hod. Now Tim had a sort of a tippler's way, and the love of the liquor in Tim was born. And to help him on with his work each day, he'd a drop of the creature every morn. One for the dog, and then to the partner, one the floor, you try to shake. I told you lots of fun at Finnegan's Wake. One morning Tim was rather full. His head felt heavy, which made him shake. He fell from the ladder and cracked his skull. They carried him home, his corpse to wake. Well, they rolled him up in a nice clean sheet, and then laid him out upon the bed, with a barrel of porter at his head, and a bottle of whiskey at his feet. One for the dog, and then for your partner, round the floor, you try to shake. Bend an ear to the truth, I told you lots of fun at Finnegan's Wake. Now his friends assembled at the wake, and Mrs. Finnegan, she called the lunch. Well, first they brought out tea and cakes, then pipes, tobacco, and whiskey punch. Well, Biddy Malone, she began to cry. Such a nice, clean corpse did you ever see? Oh, Tim, why did you die? Ah, shut your gob, said Billy McGee. Once you know, dance your partner around the floor, you try to shake. Bend the ear to the truth, I told you lots of fun at Finnegan's Wake. Well, Miss Peggy O'Connor, she took up the job. Ah, Biddy, said she, you're wrong, I'm sure. Well, Biddy gave her a belt in the gob and left her sprawling on the floor. Then the war is soon engaged. 'Twas woman to woman and man to man. Shillelagh law was all the rage, and a round ruction soon began. The devil dance, we rock around the floor, you try to shake. And the ears to the truth, I don't get lots of fun at Finnegan's Wake. Then Mickey Malone, he lowered his head when a bottle of whiskey flew at him. He ducked, it landed on the bed. The whiskey scattered over Tim. Tim revives. See how he's rising? Tim Finnegan rising from the bed, saying, whirl your whiskey around like blazes, thunder and jazz, you think I'm dead. One for the dog, and dance for the partner, around the floor, you try to shake. Bend the ears, I told you lots of fun at Finnegan's Wake. One for the dog, and dance for the partner, around the floor, you try to shake. Bend the ears,
Don't work it too hard while that's okay, that's a pretty lively piece of music. En route home after a night's drinking, a man named Jack encountered the devil. Jack climbed up a tree to escape the devil, but he followed him up. A quick-thinking Jack leapt out of the tree and quickly etches the sign of the cross into the bark, trapping the devil. In order to set him free, Jack strikes a bargain that the devil can never claim his soul. After a life of drink and debauchery, Jack finally dies, but due to his behavior, he is refused entry to heaven. So he goes to the other place, where the devil, remembering the deal, says he cannot take Jack's soul and refuses to let him in there either, and chases him away by throwing a live coal straight from the fires of hell. It was a cold night, so Jack placed the coal in a hollowed-out turnip to stop it from going out. And since that time, Jack and his lantern have been roaming the world looking for a place to rest. Ever since then, we've called him Jack of the Lantern or Jack the Lantern. In North America, the first recorded mention of children wearing costumes on Halloween was in 1911, where a newspaper in Kingston, Ontario, reported children going around guising in the neighborhood. Guising was the term used in Scotland and Ireland for people going door to door in costume. And the first recorded use of the term trick or treat was also here in Canada. In the 1927 Alberta newspaper, the Canada Herald said, Halloween provided an opportunity for real strenuous fun. No real damage was done except to the temper of some who had to hunt for their wagon wheels, gates, wagons, barrels, etc., much of which decorated Front Street. The youthful tormentors were at back door and front door, demanding edible plunder by the words trick or treat, to which the inmates loudly responded and sent their robbers away rejoicing. I love when you read excerpts from old newspapers because the writing is so much more vivid than modern newspapers. I've always been fascinated by the roots of Halloween, although most of us probably see it these days as a fun evening for the kids or the chance to dress up in costumes ourselves. I'm also very aware there's still a segment within the church population who continue to see the celebration as evil. To them, the fact that Halloween is full of ghosts, devils, witches, etc. is clear evidence that anyone who celebrates is probably bound for hell. Now, it doesn't take a genius to figure out the odds of millions of people who are otherwise good and holy and church-going suddenly becoming devil worshippers one night a year is pretty slim. Perhaps the explanation of how Halloween came into existence is far more benign and, dare I say it, interesting. At its core, the tradition has a long history in Christian practice. As I was mentioning before, most of us know November 1st as All Saints' Day or All Hallows' Day. And the 3 days we were talking about before, which is All Saints' Day, All Hallows' Eve, All Saints' Day, and All Souls' Day, are often called Hallowmas as well, like our Christmas. At its core is the Christian celebration to honor all saints from Christian history. Now, after Roman Emperor Constantine the Great legalized Christianity in AD 313, Christians wanted to devote certain days to remember certain saints. But even at that point, there were enough saints that there just weren't enough days in the year to give a special day to each saint. So they decided instead one major feast day would be chosen. For most of church history, the important feast days were always marked by a vigil celebration the night before, similar to celebrations held on Christmas Eve or the celebration the night before Easter. All Hallows' Eve was the evening celebration commencing the feast of All Saints' Day. Now, interestingly, the original, and people still adhere to this, the original point of All Souls' Day was to pray for the souls of beloved who've gone before us. In the beginning, the tradition was to pray to release their souls from purgatory. So we don't, and I believe there's still some of that element going on, that we don't tend to do that within the United Church. In 609 AD, Pope Boniface at the time chose May 13th as the day that we were all going to celebrate All Saints' Day. And it wasn't until over 200 years later that Pope Gregory IV decided he was going to move the date to November 1st. Now, why was this date chosen? Some historians believe, and it seems pretty obvious, that it was because the ancient Celtic celebration of Samhain, the celebration of the New Year's of its era, and was celebrated from October 31st to November 1st, marking the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter. Samhain was the Celtic lord of death, and his name literally meant summer's end. And because winter was such a brutal time and often brought death, the Druids would slaughter animals and offer them to these Celtic gods as a sacrifice. The animal bones were then used to start huge fires, known as bonfires. The word eventually obviously morphed into what we now call bonfire, and the ashes were believed to have cleansing powers. Now, one of the less charming customs I've come across when studying this is that they used to put, everyone in the room, in the area would put a stone in the fire that night. And the next morning, if any of the stones were missing, that person was going to die within a year. Now, I don't know if I would be willing to put my stone in there. Or you can see if you really didn't like something and sneak in later on and pull their stone out, just get worried. Besides the Celtic traditions already in place, the Roman conquest of Britain in AD 43 brought two other pagan feasts that joined the celebration. Feralia was held in late October to also honor the dead, and the autumn festival of Pomona honored the goddess of fruits and trees. And what the Romans used to do is they would bob for apples as part of this traditional festival. So again, we see how the bobbing for apples came to be associated with our Halloween. Now, the ancient Celts believed that at this time of year, the veil between the world of the living and the world of the dead was at its thinnest, and the portal between the two worlds could allow spirits to pass through. So people would go door to door in costumes, singing songs in exchange for food. They provided their own lighting by hauling up turnips, which is what they used over then. Turnips with little candles, not pumpkins. That idea came in North America. And they would put little candles inside, I guess very little candles, and carry around the turnips. Cats were also a big part of the celebration, and it was believed they were the reincarnation of people who had been bad in their previous life. So they came back as cats as punishment. Personally, I kind of assume that if you're bad, you come back as a cat owner, but my kids wanted cats. After the Protestant Reformation in the 16th century, these All Hallows Eve traditions waned on the European continent, but continued in other places like Scotland and Ireland. Thus, when the Scottish and Irish immigrants came over to North America, they brought their Halloween practices with them, and they kind of took ground here in North America and really grew from there. And we can see the obvious connection of elements from Samhain being handed down to our own Halloween. Many of the celebrations were simply absorbed into the early church, with the more pagan elements being cut out. What remained was the desire to honor the dead that grew into the custom in many countries of visiting graves annually of loved ones. So it's not a stretch to see how spirits, cats, spooky cats, and skeletons in cemeteries all came to be associated with our celebration of Halloween. The other thing that happened at this time of year in the medieval days was the act of souling. Now this became popular in medieval England, where kids would go door to door singing songs asking for soul cakes. And they were little round cakes with like a cookie cake with a cross on it. And the idea is the children would sing it door to door and ask the homeowner to give them one of these cakes. And it was basically, once again, to pray for those who had gone before. Today we're going to do something very special, thanks to Shirley Scott over here, who has actually made us a collection of soul cakes, which you'll be able to sample after the service. So you'll all feel much holier once you've eaten one. Now, I tried them before the service, they're delicious. I said to Shirley, possibly because the ingredients we have now are slightly finer quality than what they would have been making them out of back in medieval England, Europe. What I find interesting is that unique to all religious celebrations, there's not a lot of music associated with Hallowness. I mean, there's lots of hymns that have been written for All Saints' Day and some for All Souls, but nothing for the overall 3-day celebration, which I find interesting. Here in North America, we've really separated the idea of All Hallows Eve from All Saints and All Souls, which is probably why we've forgotten that they were all connected originally. That isn't the case in other countries. I mean, if you consider Mexico, the Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, is very tied into to Halloween, and hence, people dressing as skeletons going to visit their ancestors in the graveyard. But again, not a lot of music. We had Mexican neighbors for a long time, and I asked them a couple of years ago, is there any traditional Mexican song I can use for Day of the Dead? And they thought and said, well, there's a song from that Disney movie, Coco. Well, okay, I wanted something a little bit more traditional than something from a Disney movie. It did win the Oscar that year, so I suppose it was good. And if you've ever seen the 2015 James Bond film, Spectre, he's in Mexico City, and he gets caught up in the Mexican City Day of the Dead parade. That never existed. They made that up for the movie. But it was so popular in the movie that ever since 2016, they've actually had a Day of the Dead celebration, the parade through Mexico City. So inspired by the American movie, British movie. Although we've been talking a lot right here about All Saints' Day, today is also known as Reformation Sunday. So many things in one weekend. and remembers the day in 1517 when Martin Luther nailed his paper of 95 Theses to the door of All Saints Church in Wittenberg, Germany, triggering the beginning of the Protestant Reformation. It had basically advanced, he really was focusing on the fact that he thought they were abusing the practice of clergy selling something called indulgences, which were certificates believed to shorten the length of time a loved one spends in purgatory. So it was kind of a fundraising thing for the early church. And what day did he decide to nail this paper to the door of the church? October 31st, All Hallows Eve. Some people believe he deliberately chose that date and a church named All Saints to make his point, but that's never really been proven. After the Reformation, Protestant churches continued to celebrate the three-day Hallowmas festival, but over the years, as they drew further away, as the Protestant churches drew further away from the Catholic Church, they decided that it felt a little too popish, a little too Catholic, particularly the idea of praying for souls in purgatory. So I think that partially explains how Halloween ended up getting separated from the other celebrations. Now, as I was saying before, the Irish have a wonderful connection to death and dying and ancestors that we're hopefully able to celebrate as part of the service today. The next number that we chose, we were talking about it, Dan and I, earlier this week, and I thought it'd be fun if we did this one as a sing-along to get you folks involved on the chorus. So you may recognize this song.
I'm very sorry, I couldn't make it.
Oh, okay. Then maybe I'll tell you what the words are. It's called Old Rosin the Bow, and the chorus goes, let me pull out my copy over here. And simple, same chorus each time. To welcome old Rosin the Bow, to welcome old Rosin the Bow, and I know that good quarters are waiting to welcome old Rosin the Bow. Let's try that all together. To welcome old Rosin the Bow, to welcome old Rosin the Bow, and I know that good quarters are waiting to welcome old Rosin the Bow. I'm sure you'll catch it after a couple of times. By the end of the song, you'll have it down pat. Pardon me? Oh, sure. And since I'm on mic, just want to get closer to the mic. So, thank you. Should we sing through the chorus once with them first?
Sure,
So you
why
get the
not?
melody? Sure. It goes like this. To welcome old Rosin the Bow, to welcome old Rosin the Bow, and I know that good quarters are waiting to welcome old Rosin the Bow.
I've traveled this world all over, and now to another I go. And I know that good quarters are waiting to welcome old Rosin the Bow. Everybody,
To welcome old Rosin the Bow, to welcome old Rosin the Bow, and I know that good quarters are waiting to welcome old Rosin the Bow. When I'm dead and laid out on the counter, a voice you will hear from below, saying, send down a hogshead of whiskey to drink with old Rosin the Bow. To welcome old Rosin the Bow, to welcome old Rosin the Bow, and I know that good quarters are waiting to welcome old Rosin the Bow.
now get ye a dozen stout fellows, and let them all stagger and go, and dig a great hole in the meadow, and in it put Rosin the Bow.
To welcome old Rosin the Bow, to welcome old Rosin the Bow, and I know that good quarters are waiting to welcome old Rosin the Bow. Now I see that old tyrant approaching, that cruel, remorseless old foe, and I lift up a glass in his honor, have a drink with old Rosin the Bow. To welcome old Rosin the Bow, to welcome old Rosin the Bow, and I know that good quarters are waiting to welcome old Rosin the Bow. To welcome old Rosin the Bow, to welcome old Rosin the Bow, and I know that good quarters are waiting to welcome Daniel standing up there. Daniel is also quite the Yeats scholar, and over the years, for many years, toured a one-man show about William Butler Yeats, the Irish poet, and toured around Canada and Ireland, I believe.
Yeah, I did it a couple times in Ireland.
In Ireland as well. So as part of our Celtic service this morning, I asked him to, if you could choose one piece from Yeats' writing that would fit in the theme of that we are talking about this morning, and I believe you have chosen one.
Yes, The Stolen Child, one of his very early poems, from what was known as a period of time called the Celtic Dawn in literature in Ireland at the late 19th century. Where dips the rocky highland of Sleuthwood in the lake? There lies a leafy island where flapping herons wake the drowsy water rats. There we've hid our fairy vats, full of berries and reddest stolen cherries. Come away, O human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than you can understand. Where the wave of moonlight glosses the dim grey sands with light, far off by furthest rosses, we footed all the night, weaving olden dances, mingling hands and mingling glances, till the moon has taken flight. To and fro we leap and chase the frothy bubbles, while the world is full of troubles and anxious in its sleep. Come away, O human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than you can understand. Where the wandering water gushes from the hills above Glencar, in pools among the rushes that scarce could bray the star, we seek for slumbering trout, and whispering in their ears, give them unquiet dreams, leaving softly out from ferns that drop their tears over the young streams. Come away, O human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than you can understand. Away with us he's going, the solemn-eyed. He'll hear no more the lowing of the calves on the warm hillside, or the kettle on the hob sing peace into his breast, or see the brown mouse bob round and round the oatmeal chest. For he comes, the human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than he can understand.
You just make me work so much. Oh, well, thank you very much for that. Oh boy, that certainly puts in the mood for Halloween. We now come to our offering. Since the beginning of COVID, we have stopped passing any sort of offering plate in the church, but we do have an offering plate over by the door as you come in, right at the corner there. So if you feel free to put anything in there. Any money given to our church does go to help support events like this and all the various ministries that operate out of our space. For the gifts that we all have around us, we respond in faith, love, and generosity. We'll continue with what our Reverend Ellen likes to call the most important part of the service, which is our prayers of the people. Yeah.
Let us pray. We give thanks for all those who went before us, whether meeting in the outdoors or in cathedrals, whether wooden churches or crumbling cement meeting houses. We give thanks for hands lifted in praise, manicured hands hands stained with grease or soil, strong hands, and those gnarled with age, holy hands. We give thanks for hard-working saints, whether hard-hatted or steel-booted, head-ragged or aproned, blue-collared or three-piece suits. They left their mark on the earth for you, for us, for our children to come. We give thanks for the tremendous sacrifices made by those who have gone before us. Bless their memories. May we learn how to walk wisely from their examples of faith, dedication, worship, and love. We now take a moment to remember those we keep in our prayers. We ask this in the name of the one who taught us to pray, singing,
We're going to continue with one more hymn, our closing hymn of the service, called "We Shall Go Out with Hope of Resurrection." And the reason I chose this was not only does it tie in thematically well with the idea of All Saints and All Souls Day, it's also set to the tune of Danny Boy. So you don't have to worry about knowing the tune, you'll know it. The words should be up on the screen, so please join together with "We Shall Go Out with Hope of Resurrection," after which Daniel and I will play one last number to send you out dancing. And please join us out either here or out there afterwards, and please try one of the delicious soul cakes made by Shirley. They are good for the soul. There's also butter tarts. I'm going now. Before we do that, one last little thing, I would like to close with the benediction, commissioning each one of us has special talents and gifts with which to serve others. Go forth, discern your gifts, share them with your neighbor, with your community, with your world, in love and peace. Amen. Thank you all so much for coming. Please come back next week for our Remembrance Sunday service. And next, the last Sunday of November is not only Music Sunday, it's also the first Sunday of Advent. So we're going to be bringing in a lot of really fun Christmas music. So please come back and join us for that Christmas sing-along, as well as communion that Sunday as well for the first Sunday of Advent. We'll see you all next time.